Alright, hey, welcome to, first of all, welcome to my channel, and to all the Facebookers and YouTubers, thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, check out the subscribe button up at the top, and I'm continuing this series on songwriting, and finally getting one back up. It's been a few weeks, but I've been so busy and tied down anyway. As I said last time, we're going to be talking about the bones, the song bones, and it's really just like the bones in our body. It's what keeps the song firm, and what, you know, that structure keeps it keeps a certain rhythm to it. No pun intended. All these different parts of the song joined together make up that song. Now, in writing, there's been different kinds. In a lot of traditional writing, you had just a basic structure. You know, you had an intro, a verse, a chorus, and that verse and chorus just repeated however many times, usually 3 verses. And then the chorus after each verse, and then you had the outro, the ending of the song, traditionally. Now, as popular music and all on the scene, and more, there's other parts that go into it to where it's not just that basic thing. You have a bridge, in other words, you have pieces or bones of the song, to where it adds different variety to it and so forth. Now, I should mention, in traditional songs, you know, a lot of times it was verse, chorus. You had an intro, and then the verse and the chorus, and then a solo, an instrumental break, and then they started another verse and a chorus, instrumental break. You know. And nowadays, that's not necessarily the norm. And like bluegrass and such, it's still pretty much the same, but bluegrass even now has extra parts in the writing. So it really just depends on the writer and what happens. But as I said, traditionally, you know, that's how it works. Normally the song starts with a musical hook to kind of draw in the listener. This is called the intro of the song. That's the very first part. Now, the intro might be very short. It may just be a few notes, do-do-do, and somebody starts singing. It might be a strum on a guitar, you know. And there are some where their intros are almost longer than the song itself, you know, than the lyrics all put together. And that's kind of drifting into territory where you don't necessarily want to go, because if the intro is too long, then the listener may get discouraged, or may get tired of listening to just the music, just the intro part, wanting to hear the rest of it. Of course, they can always just fast forward through it, but more times than not, if someone hears a song on the radio and the intro's too long, then they're going to get bored and flip the channel. So, yeah, you don't want it to be too long. The intro itself kind of defines the mood of the song, and sometimes it's a fake mood because that mood changes in the song later. But, you know, it may start out really sad, and, you know, the music itself being so sad and lonely, and or it may be just vibrant and really rocking. You know, it gets them in the mood. Hey, you know, they hear this song coming on, you know, and starts moving their feet, and they want to listen and see what's going to happen in the song. And so the intro is much more important than some may think, because it defines the mood most of the time, but it also pulls the listener in at the get-go. It's really what draws the listener in. That's the intro. That's the first bone. The second bone is the verse. And of course, the verse is the body of the song. It's the main body and it tells a story. It's really the storytelling part of the song. You'll have multiple verses usually that tell the full story of the song. And so within those verses, you try to relay what you want to say about what's going on in that song. You have that title, and you're wanting to define what that title is talking about. And so verses are the main body, the storytelling bone. The next part, sometimes you have what you can call a pre-chorus, and the pre-chorus is almost could almost be called another verse. These are seen in songs where you have a verse and then there's another part just before you go into the chorus. It might be 2 lines, it might be 2 measures, it might be full 4 measures, and almost like a second verse, but it could be called a pre-chorus because it's starting, it's building up further into the chorus. In other words, it's building up the climax, building the story further to what the verse was written, the verse prior to it, and that leads us into the chorus. And the chorus is the climatic hook. If the verse is the body, then the chorus is the heart of the song. So it's the reason you came to write the song in the first place. The reason for telling the story. Now, it's normally going to have the title in the chorus. The title of the song is usually encountered in the title, or in the chorus, and usually that's the hook as well. And so also in the chorus, some songs will have as the first line of the chorus the title of the song, the hook, and then the last line of the chorus is that same. And in between those, you're really, it's basically saying, here's what we came for. This is why this song is here, and you're writing the lyric. That's the heart of the song. That's the heart. Basically a detailed description of what the title is about. Where if you have verse, the verse is building up the story around that and explaining how this came to be or what it's about. But then when you get to the heart, into the chorus, that's really hitting home. That's really telling exactly what it is, what the reason for the title is. And so that's why I call it the heart. A lot of times the chorus, and I say a lot of times, pretty much all the time, the chorus is going to have a different melody than the verses, and it brings the listener from the storytelling. The melody itself is structured based on the structure of the song. So verses will have this melody, and it might include the hook and the intro, but more times than not, that hook or the intro waits until the chorus. But the chorus will have a different melody flow to define it as something that's separate from the verse and really the heart of it. And so you'll usually encounter that. And so usually the intro itself being the musical hook, you're taking that musical hook that is actually part of the chorus, you understand? So they're introed by that hook, and then listening to the verses, it's like, yeah, okay, listening to the story, and then when that chorus hits and that musical hook hits again, then it all clicks, and they're like, yeah, and that same melody comes into mind that started it. Now that's not always the case. Sometimes it's totally different. Sometimes the intro, like I said, is just cling and then you start. But many times it actually is related to the chorus, the melody of the chorus. Okay. Yeah. So the next bone, you have the intro, the verse, sometimes a pre-chorus, then the chorus, and then sometimes you have a bridge. And it's exactly what it means. It's a bridge from, and a lot of times the bridge is encountered after a chorus, and it takes the listener from the chorus that they're familiar with into this other part that maybe the bridge tells the story, but it tells it from a different perspective. Sometimes it can go completely away from how you were telling the story in the verses, to a different perspective, how to look on the story, how to look at why we're singing about this in the chorus. The music and the lyrics both can come from a totally different place. But it does, however, it may have a totally different music and a different lyrical style, but it eventually smoothly flows back into that chorus, that familiar place that the listener is used to. So they go on this journey, they cross this bridge, and experience this feeling and this mood and this lyric, this story in a different light, in other words. And then as they cross back across the bridge back on solid ground, then that brings them back to that hook and back to what the song is about and what the title is about. Returns them back to the comfort zone of the chorus, if you will. So that is your bridge. The sixth bone, people call it the instrumental break or the solo. Sometimes it's called a refrain, even though the refrain can even be can even have lyrics. So most times it's called a solo or an instrumental break. And what it is, it's to refresh the listener, after listening to several words, and then it pauses the words as the music builds and starts playing, the solo giving more definition to the song. Usually in traditional music it's usually played the melody, whatever that melody is of the chorus or the verse is played as a solo part. In more modern music it's just all out whatever, it may be something totally different and unique from the rest of the song. It's almost, in that case, it's almost like a musical bridge, you see, where they take the listener to a different place musically and then bring it back in to the standard melody of the song. Sometimes songs have a very long solo, which I wouldn't recommend. That's all from a musical perspective. If you're just a writer, writing lyrics, then this really doesn't, unless you're also arranging the song. Those things are not necessarily things that you have to worry about. If you're just writing the lyrics, then really the intro and the breaks and the outro really are no concern, because you're looking for the meat. You're the body, the heart, and then the bridges and the pre-chorus, in other words. But that is to refresh the listener, but it's also a way for the singer to take a break as well. If they're really having a hard time, or maybe not a hard time, but it's really a song that really, sometimes a song can really stress you, as far as singing. You're really getting into it, and you just have to have a pause in there somewhere, and that helps the singer as well with the instrumental break. And finally, the seventh bone, the seventh part of the structure of a song is the outro, and I just mentioned it. But the outro is very simple. It's like the intro, because usually has that musical hook contained in it. But instead of bringing the listener into the song, it's kind of gradually smoothing it out, and I guess you could say it's taking the listener from your world back into theirs. As they're listening to that song, the world that you created with that song, the outro kind of smooths it all back into reality, in other words, and a smooth ending. Sometimes the outro is nothing more than just, they're singing and then bam, it's done, But in most cases, the outro is going to be a musical hook that is kind of like the intro, or the musical parts of the song, the melodies or the solos, and it's going to be related to all that other musical structure of the song, okay? So that pretty much covers the bones of the song. You have your intro, the beginning, usually with a musical hook that is related to the chorus. Then you have the verse, which is the body, and being the body of the song, you'll have 1, 2 verses, 3 verses sometimes. There are older songs who have 10 verses. I mean, these older traditional songs, especially in bluegrass, telling a story, taking 10 verses to do so. Then you have the pre-chorus, which is kind of like a verse, but it's a little different. It's kind of a builder into the chorus. And the chorus, of course, being the heart. The chorus, of course, being the heart of the song, and expresses the musical hook, the title, and is really what the song is about. Okay. Then you have the break, or the bridge, which is sometimes that part that you include if you want to take a totally different perspective of the song and show this side of it. You're over here talking about this part, but hey, look at this. This is what happened too. So it's another way to tell the story from a different light. And then that goes back into the chorus eventually. Then you have the instrumental breaks. Like as I said, it refreshes the listener, gives them a break from listening to the words, and gives a break to the singer as well. And then the outro, the final part, ends the song hopefully in glorious victory that you have obtained the full respect of the listener, and they will want to listen to the song over and over again, inspired by all the words. So those are the 7 bones. I also want to talk to you about not just the bones, but the structure. This makes up the structure. These are the parts of the structure. But the actual structure of a song is taking these parts and placing them accordingly. As I said before, traditionally, you would have an intro, a verse, a chorus, and then they do a verse and a chorus again, sometimes again. A lot of times it was 3 verses and a chorus after each verse. So you'd have an intro, verses, choruses, and then the outro, the ending of the song. That was the traditional way. Bob Dylan really mixed it up when he came into the game and was putting all kind of different things and totally mixing it up. Great songwriter. But in songwriting technology, you have what's called the A-B of the song, and that, in other words, you have an A which represents a verse. You can just say verse. When I'm writing out a song, I just use V for verse, C for chorus, and then like if I do a bridge, B. And I usually just write out intro, outro when I'm doing, because normally I'm doing music and lyrics. So as I'm arranging the song, intro, verse, chorus, break, instrumental break, solo, verse, chorus, then maybe a bridge, and then outro or whatever. But the A-B represents the different parts, and back in traditional songwriting, the A represented the verse and the B represented the chorus. So that was the basic structures. So that's what I'm talking about, structures, and it's really about arrangement. If you're doing just lyric writing, as I said, you just worry about verses and choruses. Are you going to put a pre-chorus in between the verse and the chorus? Have a little building section there? Or are you just going to go straight into the chorus and just do verse and chorus, and maybe put a bridge in to tell a different style or different side of the story. And it's really all up to you. A lot of it, once you find your muse, or as I said, your muse finds you. Once the muse finds you, and you get that inspiration for a song, and a hook hits you, a title, sometimes that title defines what you're going to do with the song, depending on all the storytelling you need to tell. I've written songs with all of the parts, but most of the time I just, being bluegrass, a lot of times I just write verse and chorus, but the more, like, I've written contemporary Christian music and just straight rock and stuff like that too, and I include all these. So it's really just dependent on how you want to present the song and what you need to say. You know, you can tell the story in just a couple of verses and a chorus. You know, so you'd have intro, verse, chorus, outro. You know, that might be the structure of your song. But your song is defined by what you think and what you feel, more so than thinking, what you feel and how you need to tell the song, how you need to tell that story. I think I sung that Too Many Lies song for you. You notice the intro is basically a little part of the music, and then I had a verse and a chorus and so forth. I wrote a song for a wedding one time and had a bridge in it, looking at, you know, that song, looking at that event or whatever from a different perspective. And as I said, sometimes that may not apply to you. You may not want to put all that in there. So just write it how you feel it, man. You know, you don't have to go by any set laws. You don't have to say, oh, I'm supposed to have a verse, chorus. Not really. The structure of your song is really based on what you want to convey in your song. You know, you may want to go with the traditional route and do it like that. You may want to go a little more modern and add those other elements, those other bones. But ultimately, it's you. It's on you. I mean, what you're inspired to do, what you're inspired to create, and that's what it's all about. So that's the fourth part of the Songwriter series, the song bones, the structure of your songs. And so I hope that will encourage you and inspire you to write songs and help you understand a little more about what the parts are. Don't forget to like and comment below if you have questions or comments. Email me and carl@carltowns.com, and just check out my website and all that. And I hope to see you next time. We'll look at part 5, to rhyme or not. To rhyme or not to rhyme? That is the question. Most of the time it is to rhyme. Alright, see you next time. Bye.